Back to the special business meeting for Tuesday, February 23rd. We're on item 3 in our agenda, Ministerial Order M192, that the district is ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability by the following means. This meeting is being live streamed. A video of this meeting will be available on the district's website for viewing on an on-demand basis, and the meeting is open to the public for electronic participation via WebEx. Someone move that. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we don't have a long agenda today, but some important things on the agenda. So first up is first 3 readings of the District of Squamish 2021 to 2025 5-year financial plan bylaw. Is there anyone giving any changes, staff, on this, or do you just want us to move this?
Through the mayor, I believe Mr. Russell has a summary slide he would like to share.
Great.
Okay, I believe that they should be sharing at this point. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, members of the public who may be watching. Happy to have you with us. It is February 23rd, and we are presenting for 3 readings the 2021 through 2025 District of Squamish 5-year plan, bylaw number 2084 for 2021. We have gone through a long process, which we commenced last fall, and to reach today. And what I wanted to point out, and I can summarize that on the slide in front of you, is that we have gone through a number of different iterations. We've reviewed changing in costs related to our existing service levels. We've looked at additions, proposed service level changes in projects, both special operating projects and capital projects. And at the end of all this, we have come in with a budget request of just over $32 million, which is an increase of $1.95 million over the existing 2020 property tax revenue requirement of $30,050,000. We anticipate that the non-market change, which is the growth in tax revenue provided by new properties, will be approximately 4% of our base tax revenue, or $1.2 million. That will leave approximately $750,000 in additional tax revenue that will be required from existing properties, and based on our $30 million current $30 million tax base, that would equate to 2.5% increase. We would like to note, as we always do at this point, that we will be setting the final taxes in April, and between now and then, while we manage those final calculations, we should remind our taxpayers that the amount that an individual taxpayer will pay will change, and based on their assessment, the values of other properties, and the values of various property classes. So although we anticipate that an overall requirement of 2.5% on existing properties is our projection at this point, that is not to say that that is the tax increase that will be felt by all payers. That is the extent of the presentation-y aspect of the financial plan bylaw. I think that for the most part, it's a very short report. There is a 5 or 6 page bylaw attachment that goes with it that outlines the financial plan. What I should comment on with respect to the financial plan and the information in the bylaw. The bylaw combines the capital plan and the operating plan into one comprehensive document that includes revenue for both the operating and capital uses, and also includes the dispositions of grants to fund, sorry, I shouldn't say grants, I should say reserves, to fund capital projects. So with no further ado, oh, sorry, I should allude to the fact that also included in the bylaw package is a list of the value of anticipated value of permissive tax exemptions which have been granted for 2021, and also the revitalization tax exemption, which is in its last year for the Sea to Sky Business Park in 2021. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I will turn the chair back, turn the presentation back to the chair, and open it for questions, please. And thank you.
Russell. Councilor Rice, I saw your hand up earlier, but did you have a question? No. Okay. Councilor Pengza.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Russell answered one of my questions. The other one, and in general, this all makes sense to me and I'm supportive of it, but page 9, 10, and 11, the revenue numbers mostly aligned except for a tiny bit. And my only concern there is, am I not understanding something? Because I was expecting them to line up. And so I'm just wondering if there's a quick clarification of why those differ a little bit.
There is a quick clarification, Councillor Pettingill, if I may, Mayor Elliott, Chair. On page, be sure that you have this right, but on page 9, you're looking at the total of the financial plan. So that's including the tax components and the general fund components and the utility fund components. Since we do not tax for the utilities, it basically comes back to the amount for the general fund. And you will see that that number and the number on page 9 and the number on page 10, general fund, are the same. When you go to general corporate, so the general fund consists of all the various departments, so general corporate, protective services, transportation, etc. When you go to general government, that is the corporate administration component. That is where, because it is general corporate where we collect taxes, that's where the majority of taxes are. There is a very small component, $180,000 approximately, for hotel tax, and the hotel tax flows through economic development, because the hotel tax that we're referring to there is classified as tax, which is accurate, but that's the and I see Ms. Boxroot here, who's going to correct me if I get the initials incorrect. That's the hotel tax that's applied to rooms that people lease or rent from hotels. And it flows through, and we contribute that money to Tourism Squamish. So because that's an economic development endeavor rather than a general corporate endeavor, because it's a flow through, is dealt with separately. And that's why those two numbers don't align.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Owner?
Thank you. Through the chair, just a question about our borrowing capacity, and it's on page 57, 58 of our package. We have a policy that aims to limit our borrowing level with a target debt servicing limit of 20% of revenue. And then the following table shows us that we're at 23.7% borrowing for our revenue. So I'm just wondering if staff can speak to that. My understanding was that we were not actually close or as close to that borrowing limit as is being portrayed in this table. So I'm just wondering if those two numbers are actually maybe not totally comparable.
I'm going to suggest they're not comparable. And I apologize in advance because the package that you have has different numbering. So
this is
number that you're
scheduled.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Schedule B, the Statement of Objectives and Policies. So it's subsequent to the bylaw.
Okay, that's what I thought, what I'd hoped. So through the chair, to answer your question, Councillor Stoner, I believe that the item that you're looking at is in section, I think that's going to be B, section A2. There's a
Correct.
little chart there that says funding sources. This is, and you're relating to the fact that it says 23.7% of the total funding in the current year is from debt. What it says, what the rules state is that on an overall basis, our debt servicing, which is the cost of debt as a proportion of the total expenditures of the organization, cannot exceed 20%. So I would suggest that that's more a case of debt servicing. So if you were to go back to the actual bylaw and the financial plan documents itself, you would see that it says debt principal and the amount is just over 4 million. And that will be on of the enclosures, probably page 3. And slightly higher up, you're going to see a listing which outlines on the expense page, there's a number of different debt interests added together. And I'm going to do some rough mathematics and tell you that that's about $7 million. That would be $7 million out of a total debt servicing of $30 million. So we're under the 20%.
Ms. Boxer? You're on mute.
Sorry. Through the mayor, just a bit more clarification on that. So the debt authorization, so not just the issuance, the authorization is what we are targeting under 20%. With all of that we've authorized to date, so not just issued, but authorized to date, we're under 11%. So we're well within our capacity at the moment.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Ms. Boxford.
Anything else, council? I'm not seeing anything. One thing I wanted to mention to council was that the Strengthening Community Services funding was announced last Thursday by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and it's $100 million. And it is for a number of things, one of which is working to reduce community concerns about public health and safety and foster communication and cooperation around supportive housing. And there had been a conversation that was started earlier in the budget process, but that was put on hold because of staffing changes around that sort of thing. So the deadline is April 16th, and we can't amend our budget. But in talking with the ministry, those funds can be applied for by local government and sourced to a not-for-profit. And if there isn't a subscription fully for the $100 million they've put up this time, then there may be a second intake, but that's not guaranteed. So I just wanted to alert council that I had followed up with Helping Hands to understand where those conversations were at, and if there was appetite to take on this work, given that they're already working on just making sure that Under One Roof is working smoothly. So I just wanted to let council know, because if if we did move something forward, it would require a financial plan amendment at a later date to incorporate that kind of project. It's just an unfortunate timing of when the provincial budget's coming out and the delays in announcing some of these programs. And our timeline for approving our budget is earlier than many local governments. So we don't have the chance to look at this funding and see how we could use it, given that we're at first 3 readings. But I don't want to close the door on it completely, and so I wanted to just give you all that information. So is there someone that wants to move first 3 readings? Councillor Race is moving that, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any further comments? Councillor Pettengill.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, I see taxes over and above anything else. It's how, as a community, we support each other. It's a statement of our willingness to do so. And, you know, I think there's a lot of uncertainty ahead of us with the pandemic. And I think the higher levels of government have taken on massive amounts of debt to provide some short-term supports, and we're not sure how that's all going to fall out. And I think we have, you know, our staff has done an excellent job of staying the course in these uncertain times and real challenges. And I want to commend them on that. I think I'm prepared to be agile as we move forward, but I think for now, trying to avoid massive swings and changes and provide some stability in terms of that funding is important. And I'm glad we've been able to do that. And I think it puts us in a good spot to be able to react and help each other out if we need it going forward. And I think there's some uncertainty. So I want to thank staff for that.
Thank you. Councillor Racing, Councillor Stoner, and Councillor French.
Thank you. And I guess I should make a comment here because I think it seems the budget process is getting a little easier for me each year. And I don't think it's me particularly, but I think staff have got it down to the point where they're really going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and we're not having to make some of the dramatic changes this year or last year that we've had to make in my history on council. Some of the budget discussions and debates have been quite arduous, and I think we largely avoided that in this. And that's, I think, primarily due to the vetting that staff does before it even comes to us. We're looking at a approximately 2.5% increase in revenue. That, from my memory, is almost a historic low. I think there's been times when it's been significantly higher in my time on council. And so once again, I commend staff for that. It is we are a growing community. We do have demands and we do have things that we do have to fund. But we've managed to keep, a very tight lid on the amount of expenditure, I think, compared to some years past. So I commend staff for that as well. So I'm very happy to support this budget going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I will be supporting the motion on the floor and this budget. Just a few high-level comments that there's no doubt it's been a tricky budget year, not in terms of the discussions. I think the process itself has been clear and transparent, and I would like to thank the community as well who have participated either through surveys or in our virtual open house to provide feedback. I think our communications on the budget this year and some of the social media components specifically have been really helpful to try and engage our community more on where it is that we're spending money. Where I do think it has been difficult is that it has been a balancing act. We know that we are still in the midst of a global pandemic. There are still lots of unknowns. We know many in our community are hurting, both economically. And so it does weigh with me that we are leaning towards this level of revenue increase, but I also see it as necessary. We are a growing community. We know that there's lots of infrastructure, community benefit that we need to invest in so that we can ensure that in the long term, we aren't robbing the future of those investments that we know we need to make today. So this was very much a balancing act for me going through this budget process. And I think I can be comfortable with where it is that we have landed. I think I'm very thankful for the amount of non-market growth that we're seeing this year, which has allowed for the lower taxation rate that I think we'll see at that 2.5%, which I do think is justifiable given the amount of work that we need to do for our community going forward. Thanks.
Councillor French.
Thanks, Chair. This financial plan sets out an exciting spending plan for the year ahead, and some very important projects are going to take place in these next few months. I consider this to be a fiscally responsible budget. A 2.5% increase in tax revenue on existing properties is appropriate and I think fair. It strikes a balance in this pandemic age when there continues to be uncertainty, as we've heard from other councillors, on many fronts due to the impacts of COVID-19. And in many ways, we don't know what we have waiting for us. And I think this budget prepares us well for that uncertainty. And with that, I acknowledge the ongoing hard work of the Finance Department with participation and cooperation from each and every district department, and also excellent feedback from our residents and other stakeholders in the budget process. And I agree with Councillor Race in that the budget process has matured significantly, and particularly when I think back to the early 1990s when I first started following budget processes. So I'll be voting in support of this budget.
Thanks, Councillor French. Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the this motion and the budget. As my fellow councillors have stated, that 2.5% increase I think is in line with on the low side. I'm sure as all the budgets come forward from all the municipalities, we're going to be comparing those increases, but we need to make sure that we're continuing to invest where it's needed in our community, so we don't leave a backlog for future councils or taxpayers to shoulder that burden. So coming off last year's flat increase, not having to go above this 2.5, I think is actually a major victory, and I commend everyone from staff and council for that effort. So thank you for everyone's hard work. I look forward to seeing some of these initiatives come to fruition particularly over the next in the short term. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, do you wish to comment?
Yes, thank you. I'm pleased to endorse the package we have before us. I'd just like to make a couple of observations regarding public engagement. In the past, I believe last year, Councillor Race and I have each referred to a 2010 public orientation session on the financial plan process. It was held around 2010, as I recall. I think this is a concept that we might consider in future. Although the input and questions received were not so much general in nature this time around, that is, taxes are too high, you people are nuts, and so on. But this may be different in future with conditions and with our strategies. We might give this then some consideration in a post-COVID future, a public orientation on how the financial plan is put together for the public. That one was particularly well received some years back. It also gives opportunity to highlight what staff has done in new and improved reporting and presentation. And that includes our master plans that we've been at work on for the last several years. And these are processes that we can feel good about and feel good about towards the public. And finally, I thought that the turnout and participation at the virtual public meeting was excellent, better than I recall in several years. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. I'll be supporting the budgets that's being put forward. I think this year represented some significant shifts in a lot of ways. So the community enhancement grants are now sitting with two very accomplished and respectable organizations in our community, the Community Foundation and the Squamish Arts Council. So I think that was a big change for us this year, not to have to adjudicate those, but rather make them non-political decisions. And I look forward to hearing the reports out from those organizations about what was funded this year. I think several councillors have commented on the process, and I think it gets easier because we have excuse me, a solid strategic plan that's focused and directed, and a solid operational plan that is focused and directed. So that makes a difference It allows the budgeting to be focused on priorities rather than sort of the spray and pray technique of budgeting, which I think we've moved very far away from. I'm so pleased that 25% of our budget is focused on either climate change adaptation or mitigation, and I think that's a significant shift for our community, and it's important that we maintain that over time. This is a huge priority. We are in a climate emergency. I'm pleased that our utilities are strengthening, at least in water and sewer, and so there was no increase in those areas and that they're self-funding. And then our staff showed a lot of nimbleness in working with us to keep the tote rate low for the small totes. And I think we've seen over almost 500 requests come in for the small tote, which of course impacts that the reserves and that utility area, but it's so important in trying to reach our zero waste goals to get more people thinking about diversion away from the landfill. So I think that's a big accomplishment. I think the restart funds are a huge help, and we've got to thank the province for that, as well as the transit funding that helped fill those holes in our budget, or this would have been a very ugly budget year and we would have had to cut services. So we can't ignore the fact that the province have stepped in to bolster local governments so that we didn't have to put that all on the backs of our taxpayers. So I think that's an important thing to remember. And I'm pleased that we were able to use those restart funds to support both the chamber. Chambers have fallen through the funding cracks of the provincial and federal governments. And so the $100,000 that is going towards our chamber to support local business is a really important investment. And additional funds for the Community Foundation to help our not-for-profit community support vulnerable citizens, but also their own recovery from COVID-19 through this year. So I'm pleased to see that there, as well as covered structures and parklets so that our community can enjoy the outdoors and still be social distanced as we make our way through the coming year. Finally, two more things. While I know that the overall revenue increase is 2.5, that first number of 6.5 makes me nervous. And I know we're trying to play catch up and smooth things out after essentially a flat budget ask or increase last year, or revenue ask. But it is a big number to me, and we can't count on 4% growth, which is tremendous, and then quite high actually for our community. And that won't be there every year. And so I think we also have to be wary of that and watch for the headwinds that will be on the economy in the coming years. So, and finally, I know that we have created this sort of ask that we do our budget earlier and earlier in the year. And I think one of the most important things around that is so that we can get our RFPs and RFQs out earlier in the process and beat our fellow local governments to the punch in terms of having those bids come in. And so it's a competitive advantage. It's not just an administrative challenge to try and pull the budget in. And so I know we're working with the new financial system. I'm hoping that that will make it easier for us in the budget process as we plan for 2022 and beyond. So thank you to staff for all their work putting this together. Thank you to council for your deliberations around the budget. And it's a pleasure to see this move forward. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so with that behind us, we're on to item B1, District of Squamish Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 2799, 2021, and we need to rescind third reading and give a new third reading, and there was just a bit of an administrative error that we need to correct there, so I'll turn over.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Charlene Pollock. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services. So further to the downtown Squamish BIA renewal process and bylaw readings given last week, a couple of errors were discovered in the bylaw. The bylaw expiry date at the bottom of the bylaw should read 2026, not 2025. And the third whereas clause should read that bylaw 2426 expires in 2021, not 2020. Those two corrections have been made to the bylaw. As well, the deadline for the petition response will now be 5 p.m. on April 6th. And 2 ads will run in the Squamish Chief newspaper, one on Thursday and second ad the following week. And information will be included on the website. And so the staff recommendations include rescinding of third reading and giving third reading as amended, and the resolution regarding the petition process, petition response deadline, and advertising requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pollock. Any questions? So, council motion to rescind. Councilor Herford, are you moving that? Or you have a question? Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. My question was only if we could do them together, if they need to be separate. If separate, I'll move the first. Yeah, I'll move rescind.
Seconded by Councilor Race. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we need someone to move the new third reading as amended, moved by Councilor Stoner, seconded by Councilor French. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that. On to item C, adoption. This is the adoption of the Loggers East Neighborhood Plan.
Sure.
Oh yeah, Armin, or Councilor Herford.
I answer to either, but thank you. As previous.
We're going to do these in a different order.
Oh.
And
okay.
Then, because then we'll be done and you can recuse yourself right at the end. Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
Move to C2, adoption of District of Squamish Park dedication bylaw for Smoke Bluffs Park, number 2800, 2021. Councilor Race, you're moving that, seconded by Councilor Stoner. Any comments on this? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then item 3 in this section, District of Squamish Smoke Bluffs Park Community Establishment Bylaw, repeal bylaw number 2805, 2021. Moved by Councilor French, second by Councilor Pettengill. Any comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we'll come back to you, Councilor Herford, to declare your conflict on the Loggers East.
Yes, thank you. As I've previously stated in this matter, I've been approached by one of the developers in the area to pursue a quote on supplying e-bikes as part of their development plan, and as such, I'm going to declare a conflict in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, when should I come back?
Or it will be done.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right, he's gone. Ms. Helen would like to move the Loggers East Neighborhood Plan adoption. That's moved by Councilor Stoner, seconded by Councilor French. Any comments? Councilor Pettengill.
Yeah, thank you. I said last time I wasn't sure, I was uncertain about my vote and I might change it. So I just wanted to make a couple comments. There's a lot to like in terms of climate action in this. When I look at our climate action plan, we are taxing our community a fair bit for it and asking them to make some change that not everyone is comfortable with. And I think it's critical for our survival, and I think there's a lot of benefit to the things that we're asking to do, but it is really important for me that I see alignment and that we're not undermining what we're trying to do there with other plans. And that has been some hesitation I've had in this, and I understand the discussion, and there are some really good things in here. Our community is such an exceptional community, and so I do have very high expectations for what I see in these plans. And I can't help but think about Greta, and to paraphrase, if your house is on fire, are you acting like it? And that's something I struggle with a bit. So I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate that, and I'm probably council's a little bit sick of hearing me talk about this thing. And so that's the one piece I've been wrestling with. The other piece is I haven't really spoken about is the divide between affordability and desire for people to sell their property and earn some money. And sometimes it is a case of a developer with lots of money and just looking to turn a profit. And that's, in terms of balancing that against affordability, that's an easy one. Talking to some people in this neighborhood, there is a feeling, though, that's not their situation. This is their only investment. It is their sort of their life's income. It is their retirement. And so there's some anxiety about some of the changes we're making. I think when I reviewed what we're talking about here, a lot of the concern is about the impact of riparian setbacks and so on. And those are largely provincial regulations. And so I think it is, these are things we're just clarifying really what the regulations are for the most part. But I just wanted to mention that because I think for some people, there is some anxiety and some real challenges here. And again, is making me think more about how we balance the desire for people to earn some money when they when they sell their property versus our need to keep things affordable. And those are in tension. Where I've landed is that I am prepared to support this, and some of the climate things and so on I will look to address during zoning and so on. And I want to thank people for all the feedback and discussion. And I think overall, this is a good plan. But it's been a tough one for me. And I'd like to thank everyone for all the work they've done on this.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. Any opposed?